A Hells Angel heard a child crying deep in Colorado woods. He found a 2-year-old girl hanging from a tree. The morning was cold and golden. Jack Razor Malone rode slow through the Colorado woods, feeling the rumble of his motorcycle under him like a second heartbeat. The air smelled of pine and wet earth. Leaves skittered across the dirt road in shades of amber and rust. He had no destination. That was the point. He had been riding for hours, trying to outrun the noise in his head. The club, the divorce, the empty apartment that never felt like home. At 45 years old, he had spent half his life on the open road. He told himself he was fine. He was good at lying to himself. The woods stretched on both sides of the narrow trail, tall and quiet. Sunlight slipped through the branches in soft yellow ribbons. A creek gurgled somewhere far below. It should have been peaceful. But peace was not something Razor knew how to hold. Then he heard it. A sound so small and thin it almost got lost in the wind. A sob. A child's cry coming from somewhere deep in the trees. Razor's hands tightened on the handlebars. He cut the engine. The sudden silence rang in his ears like a bell. Before you continue listening, please let me know where in the world are you watching from today. Now back to the story. He listened hard. There it was again, a little whimper, broken and scared. It floated through the pines and wrapped around his chest. Something moved in him. Something old and buried. Razor swung off the bike. His boots hit the ground hard, scattering gravel. He stood still for a moment, head tilted, trying to find the direction of the sound. It came from his left, down a slope where the pines grew thick and the light barely touched the forest floor. He moved fast. His heart pounded in a way it had not pounded in years. Every step crunched on fallen needles. Low branches grabbed at his leather vest. He pushed through them, not slowing down. "Hey," he called out. His voice was rough, but he tried to make it gentle. "I'm coming. Just keep making noise so I can find you." Another cry answered him. Closer now. It was the cry of a very small child, a cry that said, "I am alone, and I am scared, and I need someone." Razor pushed through a wall of low branches and stopped cold. There she was, a tiny girl, no more than 2 years old, hung tangled in the crook of a jagged limb. Her pink jacket was caught on a broken branch, holding her up just above the ground. Her feet dangled. Her toes barely touched the dirt. Tears ran down her round cheeks in wet streaks. Her curly brown hair was a mess of leaves and twigs. She looked so small against the enormous pine. Razor's heart lurched. A feeling cracked open in his chest, something he had kept locked away for a long time. He moved slowly now, careful, gentle, afraid of scaring her. "Hey there, little one," he said. His voice was soft, softer than he knew he could sound. "You're okay. I've got you." Her lip quivered. She reached one small hand toward him. That tiny reaching hand broke something in him. He stepped closer and pulled out his pocket knife. His fingers were thick and calloused from years of turning wrenches and gripping handlebars, but they moved with care. He reached up and sawed through the tough fabric of the pink jacket where it had snagged on the branch. The blade worked slow. He talked the whole time. A low, steady murmur. "Almost there. You're doing so good. Just a little more. I've got you. I've got you." The fabric gave way with a soft rip. The little girl dropped into his arms. He caught her and pulled her close against his chest. His leather vest creaked. She was so light, so small. She smelled like dirt and candy and something sweet, like a nap in the warm sun. Her tiny hands grabbed fistfuls of his shirt and held on tight. Her whole body trembled. Razor stood there in the middle of the woods, holding a child who was not his. A child he had never seen before. And yet something about her fit into his arms like she had always belonged there. "It's all right," he whispered into her hair. His voice shook just a little. "You're safe now. I've got you." She sniffled and pressed her face into his shoulder. Her small fingers curled tighter into his shirt. He rocked her slow and easy, the way he imagined a father would, the way he wished he had done for his own daughter years ago. He felt her little heart beating against his. So fast. So full of life. The morning sun climbed higher through the pines. The forest held its breath. And Jack Razor Malone stood still in the quiet woods, holding a trembling child who had found her way into the one place he had thought was empty. His heart. Razor lowered himself to the forest floor, careful and slow, like he was holding something made of glass. He sat down against the trunk of a wide pine and settled the little girl on his lap. Her sobs had faded to soft hiccups. Her small body still shook, but the terror in her eyes was beginning to melt. "Shh," he said, rubbing her back in slow circles. "You're okay. We're just going to sit here for a minute. Catch our breath." She looked up at him with big brown eyes. Her cheeks were still wet. A leaf stuck out of her curly hair. Razor smiled at her. It was a strange smile. He had not smiled much in recent years, but this little girl brought it out of him without trying. "Let me take a look at you," he said gently. "I want to make sure you're not hurt." He set her down on the bed of pine needles and knelt in front of her. His big hands moved with surprising tenderness. He started with her arms. He pressed along each one, feeling for anything broken or out of place. She watched him with curious eyes, still sniffling. He checked her wrists, her elbows, her shoulders. "No crying when I touch you," he said. "That's a good sign." He moved to her legs. He was so careful. Each touch was light and soft. He checked her knees and her ankles. He wiggled her tiny feet, and she let out a little giggle. That sound hit him right in the chest. "Ticklish, huh?" he said. "That's good. That means you're feeling better." He found no broken bones, a few scrapes on her hands, a small scratch on her chin, but nothing serious, nothing that needed a doctor. He let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. "All right, little one," he said, pulling her back into his arms. "You're tough. I'll give you that." She rested her head against his chest. Her tiny hand grabbed the collar of his leather vest and held on. He could feel her heart beating next to his. Slower now. Calmer. She was trusting him. A stranger with a scarred face and a rough voice. A child's trust was a powerful thing. It made him want to be better. "I've got you, little one," he whispered. "I've got you." They sat like that for a long moment. The forest was quiet around them. A breeze moved through the pines and stirred her hair. She let out a small sigh, like she was finally letting go of the fear. Razor looked around. He needed to find where she came from. She could not have walked far on those tiny legs. Her parents had to be close. He scanned the ground near the tree where he had found her. The pine needles were thick and soft. But there, pressed into the damp earth near the roots, he saw them. Faint footprints. Little ones. Small enough to belong to her. They led away from the tree, winding through the underbrush toward a gap in the pines. There were no adult footprints nearby, no signs that anyone had come looking for her. Something cold settled in Razor's stomach. But he pushed it away. He could not think about that now. He just had to follow the trail and find her family. "All right, little one," he said, rising to his feet. "Let's go see if we can find your mama and daddy." She wrapped her arms around his neck as he lifted her. He hoisted her up and set her on his shoulders. She let out a happy squeal and grabbed fistfuls of his hair to steady herself. "Easy there," he laughed. "Don't pull too hard. I need that hair." She giggled. The sound bounced off the trees and filled the quiet woods. Razor felt something warm spread through his chest, a feeling he had not felt in a long, long time. He adjusted her on his shoulders. Her little hands rested on top of his head. He started walking, following the faint footprints through the underbrush. The branches reached for them, but he pushed them aside, shielding her with his broad shoulders. His boots sank into the soft earth. He kept his eyes on the trail ahead. The footprints were uneven, wandering, like a child who had been walking without direction. They led deeper into the woods, toward the old part of the forest where the trees grew close and the light grew dim. Razor walked on, carrying the little girl on his shoulders, hoping the trail would lead him to the people who loved her. The trail ended at a clearing, and there, tucked among the pines like a secret, stood a small cabin. Its roof sagged in the middle. Moss covered the walls in patches of green and gray. One window was cracked. The other was covered with a piece of old cloth that fluttered in the wind. The door hung off a single hinge, tilted like a tired man leaning against a wall. Razor stopped and studied the place. Something about it felt wrong. Too quiet. Too forgotten. No smoke rose from the chimney. No light glowed in the windows. No voices called out for a lost little girl. He shifted Maya higher on his shoulders. She had grown quiet again. Her small fingers played with the collar of his vest. She did not seem scared of the cabin. If anything, she seemed to know it. "You been here before, little one?" he asked softly. She did not answer. Just kept playing with his vest. Razor stepped toward the door. It creaked when he pushed it aside. The sound echoed through the empty rooms. He ducked his head and walked inside. The air was stale. Dust hung in the light that slipped through the cracked window. The floor was covered in old leaves and dirt. A broken chair lay on its side in the corner. A torn curtain hung over the kitchen window. The whole place felt like it had been empty for a long time. But Maya looked around with curious eyes. She did not squirm or cry. She just watched, like she was looking at something familiar. Razor walked through the first room. A small kitchen, a rusted stove, a table with 3 legs, dishes piled in the sink, coated in gray dust. It looked like someone had left in a hurry, left everything behind, and never came back. He moved into the next room. A bedroom. A bare mattress on the floor, stained and old. A dresser with its drawers hanging open. Some of them were empty. Some still held folded clothes. Women's clothes. Sizes too small for the cabin, he thought. And in the corner, a small pile of toys. A teddy bear with 1 button eye. A wooden block. A cracked plastic cup. Maya pointed at the bear. "Ah," she said. Razor's chest tightened. "That's your bear?" She nodded and reached for it. Razor bent down and picked it up. It was dusty and worn. He handed it to her. She hugged it tight and pressed her cheek against its fur. Something moved in his throat. He swallowed it down and kept looking. The room was small. There was nothing else in it. No papers, no letters, no pictures on the walls. Whoever had been here had cleaned out the important things. But they had left the toys, and that did not sit right with Razor. He turned to leave and noticed a narrow doorway he had missed. It led to a tiny sitting room. A sofa with a sagging cushion, a wooden shelf with a few books, a cold fireplace filled with ash, and above the fireplace, over the mantel, stood a single picture frame. It was covered in dust, thick and gray, like it had been sitting there for years. Razor crossed the room and picked it up. He wiped the dust away with the edge of his sleeve. The glass was cracked. A long line ran from the corner to the center. But through the cracks, he could see the picture clearly. A young woman holding a baby. She was laughing. Her head tilted back. Her joy was so real it jumped off the photo, and in her arms, the baby was laughing too. Big brown eyes, curly hair, that unmistakable giggle that Razor already knew. The woman looked young, early 20s. Her face was thin. There were dark circles under her eyes. Life had been hard on her. But right in that moment, holding her child, she was happy. Then Razor looked at her eyes. Green, bright, striking green. The kind of green you do not forget. The kind of green that stays with you for 20 years. His hands began to shake. He knew those eyes. He had known them since the day his daughter was born. He had watched them change from baby blue to green in the first year of her life. He had looked into them every time he held her as a small child. He had seen them the last time he walked away, a man too broken to stay. Emily. The frame slipped from his fingers and hit the floor. The glass shattered at his feet. Maya jumped at the sound and started to whimper. He barely heard her. His ears were ringing. His whole world had just tipped sideways. He stared at the pieces of the picture. The woman. The child. The laughing faces. His granddaughter. His daughter. He bent down and picked up the photo. Dust and broken glass clung to it. He brushed them away with trembling fingers. Maya reached out and touched the picture of the young woman. "Mama," she said. Razor felt the word hit him like a punch to the chest. He looked at Maya. Then at the photo. Then back at Maya. Her face, her smile, that curl of her hair, the little wrinkle in her nose. She was the image of her mother. And her mother was his daughter. The daughter he had lost. The daughter he had failed. The daughter he had spent 20 years believing he would never see again. He sank down onto the old sofa. Dust puffed up around him. Maya sat on his lap, still holding her bear, still looking at the picture. "Your mama," he whispered. "Your mama is my little girl." His voice cracked. His eyes grew hot. He blinked hard and looked up at the cracked ceiling. Somewhere out there, in the mountains, in the town, in the world, Emily was alive. And he was holding her child. Razor sat there for a long moment. The dusty air filled his lungs. The old sofa sagged beneath his weight. Maya leaned against his chest, calm and trusting, her small hand still resting on the photo. He turned the picture over. The back was yellowed with age. The ink had faded, but the words were still clear. Someone had written them with a steady hand. Emily and Maya, forever. Razor read the words 3 times. Each time they hit him harder. Forever, that was what Emily had hoped for. A forever with her little girl. A forever she had been running to find. He traced the letters with his thumb. The ink was smooth against his rough skin. He thought about all the years he had missed. All the birthdays. All the first steps. all the scraped knees and bad dreams and giggles that he had never been there to hear. His daughter had grown up without him. She had survived foster care alone. She had run away at 17. She had built a life out of nothing. And somewhere along the way, she had found this child, this laughing, curious, fearless little girl who now sat on his lap like she had always belonged there. A soft breeze slipped through the broken window. It carried the smell of pine and damp earth. Maya looked up at him with those big brown eyes. She patted his cheek with her small palm. "Papa?" she said. Razor's breath caught. She had never called him that before. He did not know where she had learned the word. But hearing it from her lips split something open inside him, something he had kept locked away for 20 years. He pulled her close and pressed his lips to the top of her head. Her curls smelled like leaves and dust. She smelled like an adventure. She smelled like a second chance. "I'm here, little one," he whispered. "I'm here now." He looked at the photo one more time. Emily's green eyes stared back at him. She was laughing in that picture, truly laughing. And he wanted to see that laugh in person. He wanted to hear it. He wanted to stand in front of his daughter and tell her that he was sorry, that he had failed her, that he had spent every day wishing he could take it back. He tucked the photo into his inside vest pocket. Right over his heart. It pressed against his chest like a promise he was only beginning to understand. Maya watched him with curious eyes. She reached for his pocket. "Duh," she said. "Your mama," he said softly. "We're going to find her." He stood up slowly, cradling Maya against his shoulder. She wrapped her arms around his neck and rested her head on his leather vest. The teddy bear dangled from her other hand, its one-button eye catching the light. He took one last look around the cabin. The broken chair, the dusty dishes, the pile of toys in the corner. This place had been their hiding spot, their sanctuary. And now it would be the place where everything changed. He walked out through the tilted door and into the clearing. And there, right at that moment, the sun broke through the trees. Golden light spilled across the pine needles. It warmed the moss on the cabin walls. It danced across Maya's curls and made her giggle. Razor looked up at the light and felt something shift inside him. 20 years of guilt. 20 years of shame. 20 years of running from the memory of the daughter he had left behind. And now, standing in a forgotten clearing with her child in his arms, he felt hope for the first time in a long, long time. "All right, little one," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "We're going to find your mama." Maya clapped her tiny hands. "Mama." She cheered. Razor smiled. It was a small smile, barely a curl at the corner of his mouth. But it was real. More real than any smile he had worn in years. He mounted his bike carefully, settling Maya in front of him. She held on to the handlebars with her little hands, delighted by the shiny metal and the leather seat. He looked down at her and thought about the road ahead. The diner in the mountain town. The night shift waitress with weary eyes. The daughter he had failed. The reunion he had never dared to dream about. He kicked the engine to life. It rumbled beneath them, deep and steady. Maya laughed at the sound. And together, grandfather and granddaughter, they rolled out of the clearing and into the light. The dirt path wound through the trees like a brown ribbon. Razor walked slowly, letting Maya set the pace. Her small feet shuffled through the loose gravel. She stopped every few steps to pick up a pine cone or poke at a curious beetle. The town of Silver Creek appeared through the branches. It was a small place, one main street, a hardware store, a post office, a diner with a faded blue sign that read Mountain View Caf. Razor's chest tightened when he saw it. He lifted Maya onto his hip. She wrapped her legs around his waist and pointed at the sign with her teddy bear. "Dat?" she said. "That's a diner, little one," he said. "That's where people go to eat." Maya's eyes went wide. "Eat? Yeah, eat." She smacked her lips together like she was already tasting something good. Razor couldn't help but smile. A shopkeeper was sweeping the sidewalk outside the hardware store. He was an older man with a bald head and thick glasses. He nodded at Razor like he saw bikers every day. "Morning," the man said. "Morning," Razor said. He hesitated for a moment. Then he asked the question he had been carrying in his chest all the way down the mountain. "I'm looking for someone. A girl named Emily. She works at the diner." The shopkeeper stopped sweeping. He looked at Razor with curious eyes. "Emily?" "Sure, she works the night shift. Comes in around 4 in the afternoon. Stays till closing. Quiet girl. Keeps to herself." Razor nodded. His heart was already pounding. "You a friend of hers?" the shopkeeper asked. Razor looked down at Maya. She was chewing on the teddy bear's ear. Her little fingers were wrapped around his vest, holding on tight. "I'm her father," he said. The shopkeeper's eyebrows went up. But he didn't ask questions. He just nodded and went back to sweeping. Razor carried Maya across the street. He stopped in front of the diner's big glass window. His reflection stared back at him. A scarred face. A leather vest. A man who had seen too much and said too little. And then he saw her. Through the glass, a young woman was wiping tables. She moved slowly, tiredly, like she had been on her feet for hours. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail. Her uniform was clean, but worn. She looked thin, exhausted, but her eyes were green, bright, striking green. The same green that had stared back at him from that faded photograph. The same green he had seen in his daughter's face 20 years ago, before everything fell apart. Razor's breath caught in his throat. His hand pressed against the glass. Maya squirmed in his arms and pointed. "Mama?" she said. "Mama." The woman inside did not hear her. She kept wiping the table with slow, methodical strokes. She looked like she was carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders, like she had been running for so long she had forgotten how to stop. Razor watched her for a long moment. His heart pounded against his ribs. This was his daughter. His little girl. The one he had failed. The one he had left behind. She looked up from the table and glanced at the window. For a second, their eyes met. She did not recognize him. He was just a stranger looking in from the street, a big, tattooed man in a leather vest holding a little girl. But Razor recognized her. And everything he had ever felt. All the guilt, all the shame, all the years of hoping she was alive and safe and happy. All of it crashed over him at once. He swallowed hard. He looked down at Maya. She was grinning now, bouncing in his arms, reaching for the glass. "Ready, little one?" he whispered. Maya giggled. "Mama." Razor took a deep breath. Then he reached for the door handle. His hand trembled. He pushed the door open. The bell above it chimed. The smell of coffee and pancakes washed over him. And his daughter looked up from her table, the cloth frozen in her hand. Their eyes met again. This time, up close. Green meeting green across a small, quiet diner. And Jack Razor Malone, the toughest man he knew, could not find a single word to say. The tiny bell above the door rang out, sharp and clear. It was a happy sound, but it cut through the quiet diner like a shout. Emily looked up from the table she was wiping. Her hand froze mid-motion. The wet cloth slipped from her fingers and splashed onto the floor. Then the tray in her other hand tipped, cups clattered. A spoon spun across the linoleum and came to rest against a booth leg. She did not move. Her eyes were wide. Her lips parted. The color drained from her face, then rushed back all at once. She stared at the man in the doorway. The big man with the scarred face and the leather vest. The man who had been a ghost for 20 years. And in his arms, a little girl. The girl had curly brown hair and bright eyes. She wore a tiny pink jacket and carried a worn teddy bear. She squirmed in the man's hold, reached out her small arms, and cried out in a voice that filled the whole calf. "Mommy." Emily's hand flew to her mouth. A sob caught in her throat. She took one step forward, then another. Her legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Razor stood frozen in the doorway. He looked older. Harder, his face held a map of lines and scars. But his eyes, those green eyes, were the same. They were wet. They were the eyes of a man who had carried a wound for 2 decades. "Maya," Emily breathed. Her voice was barely a whisper. The little girl wiggled harder. "Mommy. Mommy." Emily broke into a run. She knocked over a chair. She did not care. The patrons at the counter turned and watched. A woman in a flowered dress pressed her hand to her chest. An old man lowered his newspaper. The cook peered through the pass window with wide eyes. Soft ragtime music played from the old radio on the shelf. It was a cheerful tune, but the room felt still. Everyone held their breath. Emily reached them. She crashed into Razor and Maya, wrapping her arms around both of them. Her face buried into Maya's curly hair. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. "Mommy," Maya said again, but softer now. She patted Emily's cheek with her tiny hand. Emily pulled back just enough to look at her daughter's face. She kissed her forehead. She kissed her nose. Then she looked up at Razor. He looked down at her. His voice cracked when he spoke. She shook her head. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She grabbed the front of his leather vest and pulled him closer. She pressed her forehead against his chest and let out a sound that was part sob, part laugh, part prayer. "Daddy," she whispered. "Daddy, I thought you were dead." Razor's arms wrapped around her and Maya. He held them like they were made of glass, like he had been waiting his whole life just to hold them. "Emmy," he said. His voice was thick. "I'm here. I'm right here." Emily wept. She held on tight. The bell above the door had stopped ringing, but the ragtime music still played. A gentle piano melody that floated through the room like a blessing. The patrons watched. No one spoke. Some of them wiped their eyes. The cook smiled and turned back to his grill. The shopkeeper from outside peeked through the window and nodded slowly, like he understood something important. "Mommy, hug," Maya said. She wrapped her arms around Emily's neck and squeezed with all her strength. Emily laughed through her tears. She squeezed back. Then she looked at Razor again. Her father. The man she had run from. The man she had missed every single day. "You found me," she said. "I found you," he said. "I heard her crying in the woods. I followed the sound. And I found you." He did not say the rest. He did not say that finding her had cracked something open inside him. He did not say that he had spent 20 years believing he did not deserve to know her. He just held her. And she held him, and the little girl between them laughed. The ragtime music faded into a new song. Something slow and warm. The diner settled back into its rhythm, but everything had changed. A father and his daughter stood in the middle of the room, holding a child who had brought them back together. And for the first time in 20 years, Jack Razor Malone felt whole. Razor led them to a booth near the back. He slid in across from Emily, but Maya reached for him with both arms. "Gampa," she said. It was not a word he had taught her. It was not a word he had heard before, but it came out of her mouth like she had been saving it just for him. Razor's face did something complicated. He blinked. Then he took her gently from Emily and settled her on his knee. She grabbed his leather vest with her little fists and patted the patches like they were secrets. "Gampa," she said again, softer this time. Emily watched. Her eyes were still red, but a small smile tugged at her mouth. She picked that name herself. "I never told her what to call you. I did not even know if she would ever meet you." Razor looked down at the small girl in his arms. "She is something else." "She is," Emily said. She took a deep breath. The smile faded. "Dad, I need to tell you something. Something important." The word "Dad" hung in the air like a bell that had just been struck. Razor nodded. He did not rush her. He kept one hand on Maya's back and waited. Emily looked at the table. Her fingers twisted together. She picked at a chipped nail. Then she spoke. "I did not run away from foster care because I was angry at you. I was angry for a while. But that was not the reason I left." Razor's jaw tightened. "Then why?" Emily took a shaky breath. "I met someone. His name is Derek. He was older. He was charming. He told me he loved me. I was 17. I believed him." The diner sounds faded around them. The coffee machine hissed. A fork clinked against a plate. But it all felt far away. At first, he was good to me. He got me a place to stay. He said he would take care of me, but then things changed. He got angry over little things. He did not want me talking to anyone. He did not want me leaving the house without his permission, and when I did, she stopped. Swallowed. He hurt me. Razor's hand tightened on Maya's back. His knuckles went white. Something dark flickered behind his eyes. But he did not interrupt. "I got out," Emily said. "I ran. I changed my name. I moved from city to city. I thought if I stayed hidden he would forget me, but he never forgot. He found me twice. Twice, Dad, and both times I had to run again." She looked up at him. Her eyes were wet. "Then I found Maya, and I knew I could not run with her. She deserved a real life. A safe life. So I dug in. I worked nights. I saved every penny. I tried to build something stable for her, a home, a place where she could grow up without fear." Razor's voice was low and rough. "And Derek?" Emily's chin quivered. "He found out about Maya. He said she was not really mine. He said I was just a broke waitress who had no right to keep her. He said..." Her voice broke. "He said he would take her away from me. He said he would make sure I never saw her again." She reached across the table and grabbed Razor's hand. "I have been hiding from him for 2 years. I have been terrified every single day. And last night I heard he was in town. I packed our bags. I was going to run again. But then you found Maya in the woods, and I had to wait for her to come home." Razor looked at her. He looked at the scar on her forearm that she tried to hide with her sleeve. He looked at the tired lines around her eyes that should not be there on a girl so young. Then he looked at Maya, who was patting his face with a sticky hand. "You are not running anymore," he said. His voice was steady. "Hard. You hear me? You are not running. I do not care what he has done or what he has threatened. You are my daughter. She is my grandchild, and no one is going to take either of you from me." Emily let out a sob. She pressed her hand to her mouth. "Dad, you do not know him. He is not like other men. He has people. He is dangerous." "So am I," Razor said. "I have spent 20 years doing things I am not proud of. But I have never needed a reason to protect my family. Now I have one." Maya looked up at him. Her big brown eyes searched his face. Then she smiled and pressed her little palm against his cheek. "Gampa strong." Razor laughed. It came out thick and raw. "Yeah, baby girl. Gampa strong." Emily wiped her eyes. She opened her mouth to say something else. But the tiny bell above the diner door rang out again. This time, it was not a happy sound. The door swung open. Late afternoon light flooded in, catching the dust motes in the air. A man stepped through. He was big, broad-shouldered. He wore a black leather jacket with patches on the sleeves. His hair was dark and slicked back. His eyes were cold. He scanned the room, slow, deliberate, like a wolf counting sheep. Then his gaze landed on Emily. A slow smile spread across his face. It did not reach his eyes. It made them look colder. Emily went rigid. The color drained from her face. Her hand tightened around Maya's arm. She breathed out a single word. "No, it's Derek." Razor moved before Emily could finish speaking. He slid Maya into her arms and stood up, his big body blocking their table from view. "Back door," he said. His voice was low and calm. "Now, do not look at him. Do not stop. Just walk." Emily did not argue. She clutched Maya to her chest and slipped out of the booth. Razor stepped sideways, keeping himself between them and the man at the door. He moved slow, easy, like he was just stretching his legs after a long meal. Derek's eyes followed Emily anyway. They tracked her like a hawk tracks a mouse. "Emily," Derek called out. His voice was smooth. "Friendly, wrong, there you are. I have been looking all over for you." Razor did not turn around. He kept walking backward, arms loose at his sides. Maya's little head peeked over Emily's shoulder. Her eyes went wide at the strange man by the door. "Gampa," she whispered. "Keep moving," Razor said. They reached the kitchen door. A teenage busboy stood in the way, holding a tray of dirty plates. His mouth hung open. "Out of the way, kid," Razor said. "Not mean, just urgent." The busboy jumped aside. Razor pushed through the swinging door and held it open for Emily. The kitchen was hot and loud. Pots clanged. A cook yelled something about an order. Nobody even looked at them. "Derek is coming," Emily breathed. "I know," Razor said. "Go, back door is past the freezer. Go now." She ran. Her boots slapped against the greasy floor. Maya bounced against her hip, but the little girl did not cry. She just stared back at Razor with those big brown eyes. Behind them, the swinging door burst open. Derek's voice boomed through the kitchen. The cook turned. The kid with the plates dropped one. It shattered on the tile. "You think you can hide from me? You think this old man is going to protect you?" Razor stopped. He turned around slowly. His scarred face settled into something hard and flat. He planted his boots wide and crossed his arms over his chest. "You need to leave," he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried. Derek smiled his cold smile. "You must be the father, the famous Hell's Angel." Emily told me all about you. He took a step forward. She told me you abandoned her, that you left her in the system like garbage, and now you want to play hero? Razor did not flinch. She told me what you did to her, what you threatened to do to her little girl. Derek's smile thinned. That little girl is none of your business. None of this is your business. You had your chance to be her father. You blew it. He took another step. The kitchen workers pressed themselves against the walls. Nobody breathed. Razor held his ground. Somewhere behind him, a door slammed. The sound of an engine rumbled to life. Last chance, Razor said. Walk away. Forget you saw her. Derek laughed. It was an ugly sound. Hollow, or what? You will hurt me? You and your old biker friends? Please, I have people too. People who do not mind getting their hands dirty. The engine outside revved. Emily was waiting. Razor smiled. It was not a happy smile. Goodbye, Derek. He turned and ran. The kitchen was a blur of steel counters and hanging pots. He ducked under a shelf, shoved a cart out of his way. The back door was right there, propped open with a brick. Cool evening air rushed in. Behind him, Derek shouted, "Get back here. I will find her. I will always find her." Razor burst through the door. The alley was narrow and dark. Emily sat on his motorcycle, Maya wedged between her chest and the gas tank. The bike was already running. It growled like a waiting dog. "Move!" Razor yelled. He swung his leg over the seat. Emily wrapped her arms around his waist. Maya grabbed a fistful of his leather vest. "Hold on tight," he said. "Both of you. Do not let go." He twisted the throttle. The bike shot forward like a bullet. Gravel sprayed. The alley flew past. They hit the main road and leaned hard into the turn. Emily's grip tightened. Maya let out a tiny giggle. In the mirror, Razor saw headlights. A black pickup truck. Fast, he did not panic. He did not speed up right away. He let Derek think he had a chance. The mountain road climbed. Twisted, tightened into switchbacks. Pine trees pressed close on both sides. The air turned cool and sharp with the smell of pine and dust. Derek's headlights stayed on them. Close, too close. Then Razor saw his chance. A narrow logging trail, hidden behind a thicket of brush. He cut the headlight. Downshifted, slipped into the gap like a shadow. The pickup shot past. Its brakes squealed. The driver slammed his horn. The sound echoed through the hills, angry and fading. Razor drove slow now. No lights, just the moon and the stars and the low rumble of the engine. Emily leaned her head against his back. She was shaking. "It is okay," he said. "He is gone." He took the logging trail for 3 miles. Then he cut back to the pavement and worked his way east. Through small towns. Past dark farmhouses. Up a gravel drive that wound through the trees like a ribbon. Lights glowed through the branches. A small cabin sat on a hill. Smoke curled from the chimney. On the porch, a woman with silver braids stood waiting. She held a lantern in one hand and a wooden spoon in the other. Razor killed the engine. The silence rushed in. Emily looked up at the cabin. Then at him. "Who is this?" "Her name is Betty," Razor said. He helped Maya down from the bike. The little girl's legs wobbled. He caught her and lifted her onto his hip. "She is family. The good kind." Betty stepped off the porch. Her eyes took in the scene. The trembling mother. The sleepy child. The rider with the scarred face who looked more tired than she had ever seen him. She did not ask questions. She just opened the door wide and said, "Come inside. Supper is almost ready." The cabin wrapped around them like a warm hand. Betty moved with the easy grace of someone who had spent a lifetime making people feel safe. She took Maya first, gentle as a breeze, and set her down on a worn couch covered in quilts. "Look at you," Betty cooed. "Curly hair, just like my sister's. And those eyes. You are going to break some hearts one day." Maya giggled. She reached for Betty's silver braid and gave it a tug. Emily flinched. "I am sorry." "She does that." Betty just laughed. A deep, warm sound that filled the room. "Child, I have raised 4 boys and 6 grandbabies. A braid tug is nothing. You sit yourself down before you fall down." Emily sank into the couch. Her shoulders dropped. For the first time since the diner, her hands stopped shaking. Betty disappeared into the kitchen. Pots clinked. Something smelled like herbs and chicken and home. Razor stood by the door, his big frame filling the doorway. He watched the road through the window. His jaw was tight. "Razor," Betty's voice came from the kitchen. Soft but firm. "Sit." He did not move. "Jack Malone," she said. "I have known you since you were a scrawny kid with more attitude than sense. You are not going to stand in my doorway like a guard dog. Nobody is coming up that road tonight. Sit down and eat." Razor let out a long breath. He walked to the table and sat. Betty set a bowl of soup in front of him. The steam rose and curled around his scarred face. "Eat," she said. He ate. The soup was thick and rich, carrots and potatoes and chunks of chicken that fell apart at the touch of a spoon. Razor had not realized how hungry he was. He finished the bowl in 4 minutes. Betty filled it again without a word. Emily ate slower. Her eyes kept darting to the windows. Every shadow made her tense. But the warm soup worked on her like a lullaby. The color crept back into her cheeks. Betty brought Maya a small bowl with a tiny spoon. Maya grabbed the spoon with both fists and mashed the soup around. Most of it landed on her bib. Some of it reached her mouth. She beamed like she had won a prize. "That is my girl," Betty said. She wiped Maya's chin with a soft cloth. "You are a natural eater. Reminds me of my Tommy. He could make a mess out of a glass of water." Maya babbled something that sounded like a story. Betty nodded along like she understood every word. Emily set down her spoon. "Betty," she said. Her voice cracked. "I do not know how to thank you. We cannot pay you. We cannot. I do not know when we can leave. Or where we can go." Betty reached across the table and took Emily's hand. Her fingers were knotted with age but warm as fresh bread. "Honey," she said. "I have lived in these mountains for 40 years. I have seen blizzards and floods and fires. I have buried a husband and 2 brothers. And in all that time I have learned one thing." She squeezed Emily's hand. "When somebody needs shelter, you give it. No questions. No payments. That is how the world stays good." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back. "I do not know what to say." "Say good night," Betty said. She nodded toward the hallway. "The spare room is at the end. Sheets are clean. There is a little crib against the wall, and a teddy bear on the pillow that has been waiting for a child to love it." Emily stood. She lifted Maya from the high chair. The little girl's head lolled against her shoulder. She was half asleep already. Razor stood too. "I will take the couch." Betty pointed at him. "You will take the guest bed in the back. I do not need your snoring keeping me up all night." Razor opened his mouth to argue. Betty raised one silver eyebrow. He closed his mouth. Emily carried Maya down the hallway. The floorboards creaked under her boots. She pushed open the door to the spare room. It was small and cozy. A quilt covered the bed. Moonlight spilled through a lace curtain. And there, sitting on the pillow, was a brown teddy bear with a red bow around its neck. One button eye was slightly crooked. The other was perfect. Emily set Maya down on the bed. The little girl stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. She saw the bear. For the first time in days, Maya smiled. A real smile, bright and wide and full of joy. She reached out and grabbed the bear with both arms. She hugged it tight against her chest and buried her face in its soft fur. "Bear," she whispered. Emily watched her daughter. Her heart felt like it might burst. She pulled the quilt up to Maya's chin and kissed her forehead. "Good night, my sweet girl," she whispered. "Sleep tight." Maya sighed. Her eyes closed. The bear stayed clutched in her arms like a treasure. Emily stood in the doorway and watched her for a long moment. Then she closed the door softly and leaned against the wall. She pressed her hand to her chest and let the tears come. The porch swing creaked softly under their weight. The mountain air had turned cool, carrying the smell of pine and wood smoke. Betty's voice drifted from inside, humming an old song while she washed the dishes. Water splashed. Plates clinked. It was a peaceful sound. Emily wrapped her arms around herself. She stared out at the dark trees. The moon hung low and silver over the ridge. Razor sat beside her. He did not push. He just waited. His hands rested on his knees, big and scarred and steady. The silence stretched long between them. Then Emily spoke. Her voice came out small. "I need to tell you something about Maya." Razor turned his head. His dark eyes found hers in the moonlight. "I am listening." Emily pulled her knees up to her chest. She wrapped her arms around them like a child. She rocked slightly. Back and forth. Back and forth. "You are going to hate me," she whispered. Razor shook his head. "I have not hated you a single day in 20 years. Emily, I am not about to start now." She let out a shaky breath. The tears came before the words. They rolled down her cheeks and dripped onto her jeans. She wiped at them with the back of her hand, but they kept coming. "Maya," she said. Her voice broke on the name. "Maya is not my daughter." The words hung in the air. Heavy, sharp, almost unbearable. Razor did not move. He did not flinch. He just watched her, waiting, letting her tell it in her own time. Emily took a ragged breath. 2 years ago, I was living in Denver. I worked at a shelter for homeless youth. I helped kids who had nowhere else to go. Kids like me. She laughed a broken laugh. Kids I used to be. Razor's jaw tightened. He remembered. He remembered everything. One night, a social worker called me, said there was a baby found in the woods, in Colorado, in these very woods. Emily pointed toward the dark tree line. Someone had wrapped her in a blanket and left her under a tree, with a note. She closed her eyes. The tears squeezed out from under her lashes. The note said, "Please love her." Razor sucked in a breath. His chest ached. He could see it, a tiny baby, alone in the dark, waiting for someone to care. Social services was overwhelmed. They did not have anywhere to put her. I volunteered, just for the night. Then one night became 2. Then 2 became a week. Then a month. Emily opened her eyes. They were red and raw. I fell in love with her, Razor. I fell so deep I could not climb out. And I did not want to. Nobody came for her? Razor's voice was gravel, rough and low. Emily shook her head. Her biological mother was never found. The police searched. They found nothing. No one came forward. So I started the paperwork. Adoption is not easy. It takes time. It takes money. It takes hope. She smiled a broken smile. I had the hope, not much else. Razor sat perfectly still. It took almost a year, Emily said. But it went through. She is mine. Legally, completely, in every way that matters. She pressed her hand to her chest. In every way that matters, she is my daughter. She turned to face him. Her face was wet with tears. Her voice shook like a leaf in the wind. I know she is not your blood. I know you thought she was your granddaughter. I know you were hoping for something that is not real. She sobbed. I am sorry. I am so sorry. I should have told you sooner. I was scared you would walk away. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Razor looked out at the trees. The moon had climbed higher. The stars scattered across the sky like spilled salt. He sat there for a long, long moment. Then he turned to her. Emily, he said. His voice was soft, softer than she had ever heard it. Look at me. She lifted her eyes. They were afraid. So afraid. He reached out. His big calloused hand covered hers, warm and rough and gentle. You found a baby in the woods, he said. A baby nobody wanted. And you loved her. You fought for her. You gave her everything you had. His voice cracked. That does not make you less of a mother. That makes you more of one. Emily stared at him. Blood does not make a family, Razor said. His own eyes grew wet. I learned that from my club. Those men would bleed for me, and I would bleed for them. None of us share a drop of blood. He squeezed her hand. Maya is your daughter, and if you let me, she is my granddaughter. Not because of blood, because of love. Emily let out a sound that was half sob and half laugh. She threw her arms around him. She buried her face in his shoulder. She cried like she had not cried in years. Razor held her, his big arms wrapped around her like a shield. He pressed his cheek to the top of her head. I am not going anywhere, he whispered. Not this time. Not ever. Somewhere inside the cabin, Maya giggled in her sleep. The sound drifted through the open window, small and sweet and full of dreams. Razor closed his eyes. His heart was full. His past and his present had woven together in a way he never expected, and for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Razor held Emily for a long moment. The night air wrapped around them like a blanket. The porch swing creaked. The sound was steady and low. Finally, Emily pulled back. She wiped her face with her sleeve. She sniffed and looked down at her hands. There is more, she said. I need to tell you all of it. Razor nodded. Then tell me. I want to hear everything. Emily took a deep breath. She let it out slow. Rose, she said. That was her name. Rose. Razor felt something shift in his chest. The name echoed. Familiar, distant, like a song he had not heard in years. Rose brought Maya to the shelter, Emily said. It was late, almost midnight. I was on the overnight shift. I was making coffee in the back when I heard the front door open. She closed her eyes. She was back there. She could see it. A woman walked in. She was young, maybe 20, maybe younger. She looked tired, real tired, the kind of tired that gets into your bones and stays there. Emily paused. She was holding a car seat. And in the car seat was the tiniest baby I had ever seen. Razor listened. He did not speak. She set the car seat down on the counter, Emily said. Then she looked at me with these big, scared eyes. And she said, Please, please take care of her. I cannot do this anymore. Emily's voice wobbled. She steadied it. I did not know what to say. I asked her what the baby's name was. She said Maya. She said it like it was the most precious word in the world. Emily swallowed. Then she turned around and walked out the door. She just left? Razor asked. Emily nodded. She just left. I ran after her. I called her name. But she was already gone, like a ghost in the night. She shook her head. I stood on the sidewalk in the cold, holding that car seat, watching her disappear. And I did not know what to do. Razor's jaw tightened. He knew that feeling. Watching someone walk away. Feeling helpless. Powerless, I called the police, Emily said. I reported it. I gave them everything I knew. Her name. Her description. But she had given me a fake name. Rose was not her real name. It took them months to find out who she actually was. Razor leaned forward. His hands were clasped together. His knuckles were white. They found her, Emily said. Eventually, she was living in a town outside Denver. She had a job, a small apartment. She was trying to get her life together. Emily paused. She wanted Maya back. Razor felt his heart beat faster. She was working toward it, Emily said. She was going to counseling. She had a caseworker. She was doing everything right. And she was getting close. So close. Emily looked up at him. Her green eyes were full of grief. And then, one night, she was driving home from work. It was raining. She hit a patch of ice. Her car went off the road. Emily's voice dropped to a whisper. She died at the scene, Razor. She never got to hold her daughter again. The words hit Razor like a punch to the chest. He stared at Emily. His mind was spinning. Rose, the name. The shelter. It all came rushing back. He remembered a night. Years ago. He had been riding through Denver after a club meeting. He had stopped at a gas station. And there she was. A young woman. Crying in the rain. A bruise on her cheek. A black eye. She was running from someone. From something. He had helped her. He had taken her to the shelter. The same shelter. He had walked her to the door and handed her to the night worker. He had told her she was safe. And now he knew. Rose was the woman he had helped escape. And Maya was her baby, the baby she had left in the woods. The baby Emily had found and loved. Razor's hands shook. He looked down at them. They were the same hands that had helped Rose all those years ago. And now those same hands had held her daughter. Razor? Emily's voice was soft. Worried. Are you okay? Razor looked up. His eyes were wet. His voice came out rough. I remember her, he said. I remember Rose. Emily stared at him. What? Razor took a shaky breath. He looked out at the dark trees. The moon was high now. The stars were bright. I was the one who brought her to that shelter, he said, all those years ago. She was running from a bad situation. I found her at a gas station. I helped her. He swallowed hard. I told her she was safe. Emily's eyes went wide. You knew her? I knew her for one night, Razor said, but I never forgot her. She had these eyes, full of fear, but also full of hope. He shook his head. I gave her money. I walked her to the door, and I told her that her life could get better. Emily covered her mouth with her hand. She listened. Emily whispered. She got better. She worked so hard. She wanted to be a good mother. Razor's voice cracked. And I never saw her again. I never knew what happened to her. The two of them sat in the silence. The porch swing creaked. The wind blew through the pines. Somewhere inside, Maya giggled in her sleep. Razor looked at Emily. His face was full of wonder. And grief. And love. The universe works in strange ways, he said. That little girl in there. She is all of us. She is Rose's hope. She is your love. And she is my second chance." The next morning, sunlight spilled through Betty's kitchen windows like warm honey. The smell of bacon and fresh pancakes filled the air. Betty stood at the stove, her silver braid swinging as she flipped another golden pancake onto a tall stack. "Come on, sleepyheads," she called out. "Breakfast is getting cold." Razor shuffled in first. His leather vest hung loose over his bare chest. His hair was wild from sleep. He looked like a bear that had just woken up from a long winter. Then he stopped. There, in the doorway, stood Emily. She held Maya on her hip. Both of them were wearing soft pajamas that Betty had lent them. Maya's curly hair stuck up in every direction. "Morning," Emily said. Her voice was shy, but there was a small smile on her face. Razor nodded. "Morning," Betty set the plate of pancakes on the table. She gave Razor a look that said, "Be nice." Sit down, Betty said. "Maya, do you want syrup on your pancakes?" Maya's eyes went wide. She nodded so hard her whole body shook. Emily laughed. It was a small sound, almost like she had forgotten how to do it. But it was real. They sat down at the old wooden table. The chairs creaked. The coffee steamed. Betty put a plate in front of each of them. Razor watched Emily spoon a piece of pancake into Maya's mouth. The little girl chewed happily. Then she looked up at Razor. She pointed at his plate. "More?" she asked. Razor blinked. He looked at his own plate. Then he pushed it toward her. "You can have mine, little one." Maya's face lit up. She grabbed a piece with her tiny fingers and shoved it into her mouth. Emily gently took her hand. "Use your fork, sweetie. That is what forks are for." Maya stared at the fork. Then she picked it up. She held it wrong. She poked at the pancake. She missed. She tried again. She missed again. Razor felt something warm spread in his chest. He watched her try over and over. She did not give up. "Here," he said quietly. He reached over and helped her guide the fork. "Like this. See?" Maya speared a piece of pancake. She raised it to her mouth. She bit down. Then she looked at Razor with triumph in her eyes. "You did it," he said. Maya giggled. Then she reached for her syrup bottle. Her little hands fumbled. The bottle tilted. Syrup poured out in a golden stream, right onto Razor's vest. Emily gasped. "Maya, no. I am so sorry." But Razor just laughed, a deep, rumbling laugh that shook his whole body. He looked down at the sticky mess on his vest. "Well," he said, "that is a badge of honor, right there." Maya stared at him. She did not know if she was in trouble. Her bottom lip started to tremble. Razor shook his head. He reached out and ruffled her hair. "Hey, look at me. It is just syrup. It will wash off." He smiled, and his scarred face softened. "But you know what will not wash off? How proud I am that you learned to use a fork." Maya's lip stopped trembling. She reached out and patted his beard. "Fork," she said. "That is right," Razor said. "Fork." Emily stared at them. Her eyes were wet. She blinked and looked away. Betty came to the table with a fresh pot of coffee. She poured a cup for Emily. She squeezed her shoulder. "See?" Betty said softly. "This is what it feels like." Emily nodded. Her voice was shaky. "I had forgotten." After breakfast, the dishes were washed. The kitchen was warm and cozy. Razor stepped outside onto the porch. He stretched his arms over his head. The morning air was crisp and clean. Emily came out with Maya. She set Maya down on the wooden porch boards. "Let her walk," Emily said. "She has been practicing." Razor turned around. He knelt down. He held out his arms. "Come here, little one," he said. Maya looked at him. Then she looked at the space between them. It was only a few steps, but for a 2-year-old it might as well have been a mile. She took a breath. She lifted her foot and she stepped. 1 step. Then another. Her arms were out for balance. Her face was scrunched in concentration. Razor's breath caught in his throat. He watched her wobble. He watched her steady herself. She was coming toward him. "You can do it," he whispered. "I am right here." 2 more steps. Maya's face broke into a huge grin. She was almost there. She took 1 final step and fell forward. Razor caught her. He wrapped his arms around her tiny body. She laughed. A bright, bubbly laugh that rang through the pines. Behind him, Emily cheered. She did it. She walked. Razor held Maya close. His eyes were wet. He buried his face in her curly hair. "Good girl," he said. His voice was thick. "That is my girl." Maya pulled back. She looked at his face. She reached out and touched the tears on his cheek. She looked confused for a moment. Then she patted his cheek with her sticky little hand. "Papa," she said. The word hit Razor like a lightning bolt. He stared at her. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Emily walked over and knelt beside them. Her own face was streaked with tears. "She has been saying that word all morning," Emily said. "I was not sure she meant it, but she does." Razor looked at Emily. Then he looked at Maya. The little girl was smiling at him like he was the whole world. His whole life he had been called many things: Jack, Razor, a troublemaker, a lost cause. But never this. Never Papa. He pulled Maya close again. He held her like she was made of spun glass. He felt her small heart beating against his chest. "I am here," he whispered. "I am not going anywhere. Not ever again." Let me continue the story from where it left off. The scene is a few days later, with the Hells Angels arriving for a barbecue. I need to end with the bikers holding Maya and showing her bikes, with Emily realizing her daughter has guardians. Let me write this naturally, keeping the warm, inspirational tone. A few days later, the quiet mountain air split open with thunder. Not the thunder of a storm. No, this was the thunder of a dozen motorcycles roaring up the gravel road. Razor stood on Betty's porch, a cup of coffee frozen halfway to his mouth. Then he smiled. A real smile. "Here they come," he said. Emily stepped out beside him. Her eyes went wide. She grabbed the porch railing. "Who is that?" "My family," Razor said. "They are a lot to handle. But they mean well." The first bike pulled into the yard. Then another. And another. A dozen in all. Leather vests covered in patches, tattoos on every arm, beards and bandanas and sunglasses. The engines cut off one by one until the silence came back, filled only with the sound of gravel crunching under boots. A big man with a gray beard climbed off his bike. He was built like a refrigerator. He took off his sunglasses and looked at Emily. "So," he said, "you are the daughter we have heard so much about." Emily swallowed. Yes?" The man grinned. Then he walked over to a small trailer hitched to his bike. He pulled out a cooler bigger than Maya. "Good," he said. "We brought ribs." Betty came out of the house. She wiped her hands on her apron and laughed. "Boys," she said, "you did not tell me you were coming." "We do not tell anyone anything, Betty," the big man said. "You know that." He set the cooler down and walked over to her. He kissed her cheek with surprising gentleness. "But you are the only woman who can cook better than this grill. So we figured we would eat here." The other bikers spread out. They set up tables, they unloaded bags of charcoal, and bags of chips and a cake with pink frosting. Emily saw the words written on it. "Welcome home, Maya." Her hand flew to her mouth. Razor walked over to her. He put his hand on her shoulder. "They heard about what happened," he said. "They wanted to do something nice." Emily shook her head. "They do not even know me." "They know you are mine," Razor said. "That is enough." A few of the bikers were already circling Maya. She stood in the middle of the yard, a tiny pink jacket over her pajama shirt. She looked up at the giants around her. Her eyes were big. One of the men, a wiry guy with a scar over his eyebrow, knelt down. He held out his hand. "Hey there," he said. "My name is Tommy. I am a friend of your grandpa." Maya stared at his hand. Then she reached out and grabbed his finger. Tommy's face melted. "Oh no," he said. "Oh no. She is too cute. I cannot handle it." The others laughed. They took turns kneeling down to meet her. Each one said their name. Each one shook her finger like it was the most important greeting they had ever made. Maya did not cry. She did not hide behind Emily's legs. She just stared at each of them with those big brown eyes. And then, after the third one, she started to giggle. "She likes them," Emily whispered. Razor nodded. "Little girl has good taste. She knows who is real." The barbecue got going. Smoke rose from the grill. Betty put out plates and napkins. The bikers brought lawn chairs and sat in a loose circle in the grass. They told stories. They laughed. They argued about whose bike was fastest, who had the best paint job, who had the loudest pipes. Maya sat on Emily's lap and ate a piece of watermelon. Her face was covered in juice. She did not care. Then the big man with the gray beard stood up. He walked to his bike and swung a leg over the seat. He revved the engine. It boomed like a cannon. Maya jumped. She dropped her watermelon. She stared. "Come here, little one," the man said. He patted the gas tank. "You want to see what this thing can do?" Razor stepped forward. "Easy, Big Tom. She is too." Big Tom laughed. "I will ride slow. In a circle. Right here in the yard. She can sit on the tank and I will hold her. She will be safer than in a crib." Emily looked at Razor. Razor looked at her. They both looked at Maya. Maya was already reaching out her arms toward the bike. "Okay," Emily said. She stood up and carried Maya over. Big Tom took her carefully. He placed her on the leather seat in front of him. Her tiny hands gripped the handlebars. She looked up at him. Her eyes were shining. "Ready?" he asked. Maya nodded. Big Tom let the clutch out slow. The bike crept forward. He made a big, lazy circle in the grass. Maya held on. Her mouth was open. Her hair flew behind her. When he came back to the group, she burst out laughing. It was the loudest laugh Emily had ever heard from her. Again. Maya shouted. The other bikers howled with laughter. They all wanted a turn. One by one, they took Maya around the yard. Each ride was slow. Each ride was gentle. Each rider held her with the same care they would use for their own child. Emily watched from the porch. Her arms were crossed. Her eyes were wet. Betty came and stood beside her. She handed Emily a glass of lemonade. "What are you thinking?" Betty asked. Emily watched as Tommy set Maya on his gas tank and helped her pretend to steer. Maya's little hands turned the handlebars back and forth. She made engine noises with her mouth. "I am thinking," Emily said slowly, "that I spent 2 years hiding. 2 years being scared. 2 years feeling like it was just me and her against the world." She paused. A tear rolled down her cheek. "And now I am watching my daughter laugh with a dozen bikers who would take a bullet for her without thinking twice. Betty nodded. That is what family looks like, sweetheart. It is not about blood. It is about who shows up. Emily smiled. She whispered the words to herself like a prayer. She has an army of guardians. In the yard, Maya revved a tiny plastic horn that someone had found in a saddlebag. She laughed. She looked toward the porch. She waved at Emily. Emily waved back. The afternoon sun hung high over the yard, golden and warm. The smell of barbecue still drifted through the air. Plates were stacked high with bones and corn. The bikers sat in a loose circle, their laughter rolling like thunder. Razor disappeared into the cabin for a moment. When he came back, he was holding something behind his back. Maya saw him first. She pointed. Gampa. Razor smiled. He walked over and knelt in front of her. Then, he brought his hand around. It was a tiny pink motorcycle helmet. It was glossy and round and had a big silver star sticker on the front. Maya gasped. She reached for it with both hands. Whoa, slow down, Razor said. He turned it so she could see the star. I got this for you. You need a helmet if you are going to ride with us. Maya grabbed it. She turned it around in her little hands. Then she put it on her head, upside down. The helmet covered her entire face. The chin strap dangled over her eyebrows. The star pointed at the ground. The yard went quiet for 1 second. Then Big Tom burst out laughing. The whole club followed. Tommy was laughing so hard he fell off his lawn chair. Even Betty, standing on the porch, was shaking with laughter. Maya did not understand why everyone was laughing. But she liked the attention. So she laughed too. A big, happy laugh that made everyone laugh even harder. Emily joined in. She moved out from behind and leaned down to her daughter. Sweetie, you have it on upside down. She gently turned the helmet. The helmet clicked into place. It framed Maya's face perfectly. The star now sat above her forehead like a badge of honor. Maya patted the top of the helmet with her palm. Pretty, she said. Razor smiled. He reached out and rubbed the star with his thumb. That is for you, so you can be brave like the stars in the sky. Maya nodded like she understood every word. The barbecue kept going. The bikers played music on a speaker. They taught Maya how to rev an imaginary throttle with her hand. She copied them perfectly. They cheered. Emily watched. Then she walked over to Razor. He was standing at the edge of the grass, sipping a soda. She touched his arm. He turned to face her. Thank you, she said. For what? Emily looked at the yard. Maya was sitting on Tommy's knee now, practicing her imaginary throttle. Tommy was being very serious about it, like it was the most important lesson in the world. For her, Emily said. For making her feel safe. For making her feel loved. She spent her whole life in motel rooms and back seats of cars. I never gave her a home. I never gave her people. Razor shook his head. You gave her everything. You kept her safe. Safe is not the same as happy. Emily's voice was quiet. I kept her alive. But you gave her a family. Razor looked down at his big hands. There was a long pause. He seemed to be searching for the right words. I spent a lot of years running from things, he said. Mostly from myself. I missed your whole life, because I was too stubborn to look behind me and see what I was leaving behind. Emily blinked. You are here now. I am here now, Razor repeated. He looked at her. His eyes were wet. And I am not going anywhere. The sun began to dip low in the sky. The light turned orange and pink. The mountains turned purple against the horizon. The bikers started to pack up. One by one, they came to say goodbye. They hugged Emily like she had known them for years. They kissed the top of Maya's helmet. Tommy knelt down in front of Maya. "You keep that hat on tight, okay? Next time I am teaching you how to shift gears." Maya nodded seriously. "I will practice," she said. Tommy laughed. He climbed on his bike and rode off into the sunset. The others followed. The roar of engines faded down the mountain road. The yard was quiet again. The screen door creaked. Betty came out and took the last plates inside. She smiled at the two of them and gave Maya a cookie on the porch steps. The sun set. The sky turned deep blue. The first stars appeared. Emily and Razor stood side by side in the grass. Maya was asleep in her mother's arms, the pink helmet still on her head. Her little chest rose and fell with soft, quiet breaths. Emily looked at her sleeping daughter. Then she looked at the man beside her, the man with the scarred face and the giant hands, the man who had given her girl a helmet with a star on it. "I never thought I'd have a family again," Emily whispered. Her voice cracked. She did not care. She was too tired to be strong, too grateful to pretend. Razor was quiet for a long moment. He stared at the hills in the distance. The wind moved through his gray-streaked hair. Neither did I. His voice was low. Rough, honest. Emily turned to look at him. He turned to look at her. The space between them held all the years they had missed, all the hurt, all the mistakes, and under that, something new, something green and hopeful. A seed planted in broken ground. They shared a long, hopeful look. Nothing else was said. In the quiet, a small voice came from the bundle of pink in Emily's arms. Half asleep, Maya mumbled one word. More, Emily laughed softly. Razor smiled. Tomorrow had already begun. The cabin had gone quiet. The only sound was the soft wind outside and the old wooden walls creaking from the cool night air. Emily moved slowly, her footsteps light on the floorboards. In her arms, Maya was fast asleep, her cheek pressed against Emily's shoulder. The tiny pink helmet sat on the table by the door. Maya had refused to take it off during dinner, but Betty had talked her into letting it rest for the night. Emily lowered her daughter into the crib. The mattress was soft and clean, with a warm blanket folded at the foot. The sheets smelled like lavender. Betty must have washed them earlier that day. Emily pulled the blanket up to Maya's chin and tucked the edges under the mattress. Maya stirred for a second, then settled. Her little lips made a soft sound. Emily watched her for a long moment. She smoothed a curl off Maya's forehead. Then she leaned down and kissed her there. The skin was warm and smooth. "Good night, sweet girl," Emily whispered. She stood up straight. She looked around the room. There was a small window above the crib. It was closed. The glass was dark, reflecting the lamplight. Emily checked the latch. It was locked. She turned and walked to the door, leaving it open just a crack, just enough to hear her girl if she woke up. The living room was small but cozy. Betty sat in a rocking chair by the fireplace, a cup of tea in her hands. The fire had burned down to glowing coals. The old woman looked up and smiled. "She is down," Emily said. "Good," Betty said. "That little one is all tuckered out." Emily came closer. She folded her arms and looked at the floor. "Betty, I want to thank you. For everything. For letting us stay here. For the food. For the way you treat Maya like she is your own." Betty set her cup down. She reached out and took Emily's hand. "Honey, that child deserves the whole world." And you do too. Emily felt her throat tighten. She squeezed Betty's hand. I have not been able to trust anyone in a long time. But here, with you and Razor, I feel safe. That is what family does, Betty said. Now stop thanking me and go get some rest. You look like you have not slept in a month. Emily laughed. She let go of Betty's hand and turned. She walked back toward the hallway. Her footsteps were soft, but her heart was light. For the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe. She reached the door to Maya's room. She pushed it open. The room was cold. The window above the crib was wide open. The curtain was blowing in the night air. The cold wind swept across the sill. Emily's eyes went to the crib. The blanket was pushed aside. The crib was empty. She froze. Her breath stopped. Her heart dropped into her stomach like a stone. Maya? Her voice was a whisper at first. She stepped to the crib and touched the mattress. It was still warm. She looked at the window. The screen was torn, hanging loose. Somebody had cut it open. Maya! Emily screamed. She ran into the living room. Betty stood up, her face gone white. Emily ran past her, out the front door. The porch was dark. Razor was standing at the edge of the grass, still awake, looking at the stars. He turned at the sound of her steps. Maya's gone. Emily cried. Somebody took her. Razor's face changed. It went hard and cold. He moved fast. He grabbed Emily by the shoulders. Which window? Her room. The one behind the crib. Razor ran to the side of the cabin. Emily followed. They rounded the corner just as the sound of an engine tore through the night. A black truck was already far down the mountain road. Its headlights were off. The taillights glowed red in the dark. It was getting smaller every second. Derek was behind the wheel. Emily knew it without seeing his face. She knew it in her bones. No, she whispered. No, 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 she screamed so loud her throat burned. Maya. The truck kept going. The red lights disappeared around a bend in the road. Razor stood frozen for one heartbeat. Then he turned and ran toward his motorcycle. His boots pounded the dirt. He did not speak. There was no time for words. Emily stood on the porch, shaking, her hands over her mouth. The cold wind hit her face. Derek had found them. Razor hit the ground running. He did not look back. His boots pounded the dirt as he reached his motorcycle. The engine roared to life, louder than the wind. Emily stood on the porch, shaking. Betty came out and wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. Emily did not feel it. She only stared at the dark road where the red lights had vanished. The first call went out at 9:42 that night. Razor shouted into his phone while his bike tore down the mountain road. Everyone up. Derek has Maya. He is in a black truck. Head south on the county road. Find him. Within 20 minutes, the clubhouse lights were on. Leather jackets and helmets flooded out into the night. Engines sparked to life one after another. Bikes and trucks rolled out in every direction. Headlights cut through the dark forest like knives. They searched the back roads. They searched the highways. They checked every gas station, every rest stop, every hidden turn. Men called out on radios. They covered the mountains. Nothing. Sheriff Laura Danvers arrived at the cabin at midnight. Her cruiser lights swept the yard. She stepped out with a stern face and a notepad. Razor was standing by the side of the cabin, his fists tight, his jaw hard. "Tell me everything," Danvers said. Razor's voice was rough. "He found us. He must have been watching." He cut the screen and took her from her crib. Emily and Betty were inside, I was by the trees. Which direction did he go? Northwest on the old logging road. Then he cut his lights. We lost him at the ridge. Danvers nodded. She spoke into her radio, ordering roadblocks at the county lines. She called in a helicopter unit from the state police. For 2 hours, they worked the phones and the maps. Razor stood over the table, his finger tracing every line, every path. He knows these woods, Razor said. He is not taking her far. He wants to hurt me. He will hide somewhere close. We will find him, Danvers said. But her voice was calm, and that scared him. Emily stayed on the porch the whole night. She did not sit. She did not sleep. She stood with her arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Betty brought her tea. Emily let it go cold. By morning, the search had spread across 3 counties. Dozens of bikers and off-duty deputies combed the forest. They checked abandoned cabins, old mines, hunting camps. Nothing. 1 day passed. Then, another. The club returned to the cabin with nothing. The search parties grew tired. The radio calls grew quiet. Even the engines seemed to slow down. Razor came back to the cabin on the 2nd evening. His face was covered in dust. His eyes were red. He walked through the door and saw Emily. She was sitting in the rocking chair by the fireplace. The fire was low. The room was silent. In her hands, she held the tiny pink helmet. Maya had laughed when he gave it to her. She had hugged it like a treasure. Now Emily turned it around in her fingers. Her face was hollow. Her cheeks were stained with dried tears. She had not slept. She had barely eaten. She rocked slowly back and forth, staring at the helmet. Razor stood in the doorway. He could not move. The sight of her broke something inside him. He had promised to protect them. He had told her he would keep them safe. And now, that little girl, that sweet little girl with the curly hair and the giggle, was gone. He clenched his fists. His knuckles went white. He did not know how to carry this weight. He had faced fights, prison, grief. But this was worse. This was a child. His granddaughter. His second chance. He started to pace, back and forth across the floor. His boots were heavy. His heart was heavier. I should have been inside, he said. I should have checked the windows. I should have seen him coming. Emily did not answer. Razor kept pacing. He looked at the helmet in her hands. He remembered Maya patting his beard. He remembered her tiny voice saying, "Papa." He closed his eyes. The image burned behind his lids. Betty came in quietly. She set a plate of food on the table. Neither of them touched it. Betty looked at Razor and then at Emily. She did not say a word. She just sat down in the corner and folded her hands. The cabin was quiet. 2 days had passed. No sign, no call, no trail. Emily pressed the helmet to her chest. She rocked forward and back. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. It might have been a prayer. It might have been Maya's name. Razor stopped pacing. He stared out the window at the dark woods. His hands shook at his sides. He could not fix this. He could not fight this. For the first time in his life, the toughest man he knew felt completely, utterly powerless. The 3rd morning came cold and gray. A thin mist hung over the pines. The cabin was quiet, heavy with waiting. Razor sat at the kitchen table. His coffee had gone cold hours ago. His eyes were fixed on the window, but he was not seeing the trees. He was seeing Maya's face. He was hearing her giggle. Emily had finally fallen asleep on the couch. Betty had wrapped her in a quilt and placed a pillow under her head. She had not let go of the pink helmet. She held it against her chest like a lifeline. The phone rang. Razor jumped. The sound cut through the silence like a blade. He grabbed the receiver before the second ring. Yeah? Razor, it's Danvers. Her voice was sharp and fast. We got a tip. A hunter called in. He saw a black truck matching Derek's plates about 10 miles north of the county line. There's an abandoned mine up there. Old silver shaft, sealed off years ago. But there's a service road that still opens. Razor's heart slammed against his ribs. He gripped the phone so hard his knuckles turned white. You sure it's him? The hunter got a good look. He saw a man carrying a small child in a pink coat. That's Maya. We're certain. Razor's breath caught. He closed his eyes. A wave of hope and fear washed through him at once. Send me the coordinates, he said. His voice was low and steady. I'm sending a unit now. I'll meet you at the old ranger station near the mine entrance. We'll plan the approach together. No guns, no heroes. We do this smart. Razor nodded. I'll be there. He hung up. For a second he stood frozen. Then he moved. He crossed the room in 3 long strides. He knelt beside Emily and placed his hand on her shoulder. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open. They were red and swollen from crying. Emily, he said softly. Wake up. They found the truck. She sat up fast. The helmet fell from her hands and rolled across the floor. She grabbed his arm. Where? Is she okay? Is Maya? We don't know yet. But the sheriff has a lead. An abandoned mine near the county edge. A hunter saw a man with a little girl in a pink coat. Emily's face went pale. Then her jaw tightened. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm coming with you. Razor wanted to say no. He wanted to tell her to stay. But he looked at her eyes, and he knew there was no stopping her. Get your jacket, he said. We move now. Within minutes, they were on the road. Razor's bike tore through the morning air. Emily rode behind him, her arms wrapped tight around his waist. She did not flinch at the speed. She held on like she was holding on to hope itself. The old ranger station came into view. It was a small wooden building with a faded sign and a dirt lot. Sheriff Danvers was already there, standing beside her cruiser. 2 other patrol cars were parked nearby. 4 officers in plain clothes stood in a loose circle, maps spread across the hood of the cruiser. Razor cut the engine. Emily slid off behind him. Her boots hit the gravel with a hard thud. Danvers walked over. She looked at Emily, then at Razor. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. We have the mine surrounded from a distance. No lights, no sirens. He doesn't know we're here yet. She pointed at the map. The entrance is a 50-foot opening in the hillside. There's a small clearing in front of it. The service road ends there. That's where the truck was parked. Is Maya inside? Emily's voice cracked. We believe so. One of our scouts saw movement near the entrance. A child's toy was left on the ground outside. A small pink teddy bear. Emily let out a choked sob. She covered her mouth with her hand. Razor stepped closer and put his arm around her. We're going to get her, he said. His voice was rough, but it held a promise. Danvers continued. We have 2 options. We can wait him out. Or we can approach the entrance and negotiate. Given that a child is involved, I want to try communication first. I'll use the loudspeaker. If he doesn't respond, we move in with a tactical team. Razor shook his head. No. Let me go in first. Alone, Emily's head snapped up. Razor, no, he won't hurt me. He wants to hurt me. He wants to see me suffer. If I walk in with my hands up, he'll talk. He'll want to gloat. That gives us time. Danvers studied him. Her eyes were hard to read. Then she nodded slowly. It's risky. But it might work. You stay within radio range. The moment things go wrong, we come in. Razor looked at the map. Then he looked up at the mine entrance in the distance, a dark hole in the rock. I'll get her, he said. I promise. Emily grabbed his hand. Her fingers were cold and trembling. You come back too, she whispered. Both of you. Razor squeezed her hand. He did not let go. He did not speak. He just held her there, in the cold morning air, as the officers finished their plan and the sun began to rise over the mountain. The group moved like ghosts through the pines. Razor led the way, his boots silent on the soft earth. Emily stayed close behind him. Her breath came in short, shallow puffs. She clutched the pink helmet against her chest. Sheriff Danvers held up her hand. Everyone stopped. They stood at the edge of the clearing. 50 yards ahead, the mine entrance gaped like a dark mouth in the rocky hillside. It was wide and tall, big enough for a truck to drive through. Old timbers framed the opening, cracked and weathered. Beyond them, nothing but black. Derek's truck sat parked at the edge of the clearing. The driver's door hung open. The engine was still ticking as it cooled. Danvers crouched low. She pulled out a pair of binoculars and scanned the entrance. She let them fall against her chest with a soft click. I can't see anything inside, she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. The shaft curves to the left about 20 feet in. It's a blind spot. We don't know what's beyond that corner. One of the officers stepped forward. We could rush it. Flashbang and a quick entry. Catch him off guard. Danvers shook her head. Too dangerous. He's holding a 2-year-old. If he gets spooked, anything could happen. We can't risk it. Razor stared at the black opening. His jaw was tight. His hands hung loose at his sides, but his fingers twitched. He wants me, Razor said. His voice was low and rough. He doesn't want a firefight. He wants to see me hurt, to see me beg. Emily grabbed his arm. No, Razor, you can't just walk in there. What if he has a gun? What if he hurts you? Razor looked at her. His eyes were softer than she had ever seen them. He reached up and placed his hand over hers. I've been in worse spots than this. I know how to read men like Derek. He's a bully. And bullies fold when someone stands up to them. He's not just a bully, Emily said. Her voice shook. He's mean. He's hurt people before. He hurt me. Razor's jaw tightened. Something dark flickered in his eyes. But he pushed it down. He pressed his palm against Emily's cheek. I know, baby girl. I know. But I made you a promise. I'm going to keep it. He turned to Danvers. Give me a radio. A small one, clipped to my belt. I'll keep it open. If you hear me raise my voice, you come in hot. Danvers pulled a small black radio from her vest. She handed it to him. Battery is fresh. Range is solid through the rock. We'll hear everything. She paused. Razor, you don't have to do this alone. My team is trained for hostage situations. Razor clipped the radio to his belt. He looked at the mine again. Then, he looked at Emily. He reached up and unbuckled his leather vest. The one with the club patches. The one that smelled like smoke and highway. The one he had worn for 20 years. He folded it once, slowly, like it was precious. He held it out to Emily. Hold this for me, he said. His voice was quiet. I'll come back for it. Emily took the vest. Her hands trembled. She clutched it tight, pressing it against her chest next to the pink helmet. Derek knows who I am, Razor said. He's seen me at the club. He knows what I stand for. If I walk in unarmed, with my hands up, he'll talk. He'll want to gloat. He'll want to make me watch him win. That gives you time. Time for what? Emily's voice cracked. Time to get Maya out. He'll be focused on me. He won't watch her. When he looks away, you'll be there. The sheriff will move the team in. You'll grab Maya and run. Emily shook her head. Tears streamed down her cheeks. You don't know that. You don't know he'll let her go. Razor reached out and wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. It was a gesture so gentle it seemed impossible coming from a man his size. He'll let her go because I won't give him a reason to hold on. I'll give him what he wants. I'll give him my bike, my money, my freedom. Whatever he asks. He can have all of it. He bent down and pressed his forehead to hers. He could smell her shampoo. He could feel her shaking. I'm not losing you again, he whispered. And I'm not losing that little girl. She is my family. You are my family. I failed you once. I won't fail you again. Emily's breath caught. She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came. She clutched his vest tighter. Her eyes were full of fear. Razor pulled back. He looked at the mine entrance one more time. The darkness seemed to pulse, waiting for him. He turned to Danvers. Count to 30 after I go in. Then move the team to the edge of the entrance. Stay out of sight. Wait for my signal. Danvers nodded. Her face was grim. Be careful, Razor. Razor smiled. It was a small, sad smile. 45 years on this earth. I've been stabbed, shot, and thrown off a bike at 80 miles an hour. A man like Derek? He's just another road bump. He stepped toward the clearing. The gravel crunched under his boots. He kept his hands visible at his sides. Razor, Emily's voice stopped him. He turned. She stood there, holding his vest, holding the helmet, her cheeks wet with tears. Please come back, she said. Please come back to me. To us. Razor looked at her. He looked at his granddaughter's pink helmet, pressed against her heart. I'm going in alone, he said. His voice was steady. He wants me, not the girl. He walked into the clearing. The morning sun caught his back, casting a long shadow behind him. He did not look back. He stepped into the darkness, and the darkness swallowed him whole. The darkness wrapped around Razor like a cold blanket. The air inside the mine was damp and still. It smelled of old rock and rust and something else. Something sour. Fear. He walked slowly, his boots crunching on loose gravel. Each step echoed off the walls. The shaft curved to the left, just like Danvers said. The light from the entrance faded behind him. Soon he was walking in near darkness, guided only by the faint glow of a lantern somewhere ahead. He stopped and listened. His heart pounded in his chest, but his breathing stayed steady. He had learned long ago to keep calm when it mattered most. Derek, he called out. His voice bounced off the stone walls. I know you're in here. I came alone. No weapons. No tricks. Silence, then a sound. A small, muffled cry. It came from deeper in the shaft, around the corner. Razor's chest tightened. That cry. He knew it. It was Maya. He moved forward, his hands still raised at his sides. The lantern light grew stronger as he rounded the curve. The shaft opened into a wider chamber, like a small cave carved out of the mountain. Old mining tools hung on the walls, rusted picks and shovels. A broken wheelbarrow tipped on its side. And there, in the middle of the chamber, stood Derek. He was taller than Razor remembered. His shoulders were broad, his face hard and cold. He wore a black leather jacket with the patches of a rival club. His eyes were flat and empty, like a snake's. But Razor barely looked at him. His eyes went straight to Maya. She was tied to a thick wooden support post in the center of the chamber. Rope wrapped around her small body, holding her tight against the beam. Her pink jacket was dirty and torn at the sleeve. Her face was streaked with tears. Her little mouth was open, but only tiny whimpers came out. She looked exhausted. She looked terrified. And Derek stood beside her, one hand resting on her shoulder. In his other hand, a knife glinted in the dim lantern light. The blade was long and sharp. It caught the glow and threw it back like a warning. Razor's whole body went still. Every muscle in him screamed to rush forward, to grab the man and tear him away from that little girl. But he didn't move. He couldn't. The knife was too close to her side. "Easy now, old man," Derek said. His voice was smooth and mocking. "I saw you coming from the moment you stepped into the clearing. You think you're clever, walking in here with your hands up, playing the hero?" Razor kept his hands raised. He kept his voice low and steady. "I'm not here to play anything, Derek. I'm here to talk." Derek laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound that echoed off the rocks. "Talk? You want to talk? You took my woman. You hid her from me. You filled her head with lies about family and safety and all that garbage." He gestured with the knife toward Maya. "And this one. This little brat. You think she's yours? She's not yours. She's not even hers. She's nobody's." Maya whimpered. Her small body trembled against the post. She looked at Razor with wide, wet eyes. Her lips moved, forming a word too quiet to hear. Razor's heart cracked open. He took a small step forward. "Stay back, old man." Derek's voice turned sharp. He pressed the knife against Maya's side. The blade touched her pink jacket just above her ribs. Maya let out a tiny cry. Her eyes squeezed shut. Razor froze. His hands shot up higher. His breath caught in his throat. "Okay," he said quickly. "Okay, I'm not moving." "See? I'm not moving." He stood perfectly still. His eyes locked on Maya's face. She opened her eyes and looked at him. There was so much fear in them, so much confusion. She didn't understand what was happening. She just knew she was scared. Razor forced a small smile onto his face. He tried to make it gentle, tried to show her that everything would be all right. "Hey, little one," he said softly. "Remember that pink helmet I got you? The one with the little stars on it? We're gonna ride that bike again real soon, I promise." Maya sniffled. Her tiny fingers curled against the rope. Derek sneered. "Sweet talk all you want. She's not going anywhere. And neither are you." He pressed the knife a little harder against her side. Maya whimpered again. Razor's hands trembled, but he kept them raised. He kept his eyes on Maya's face. He kept his voice soft and calm. "Stay back, old man," Derek snarled. His teeth were bared. His eyes were wild. Razor froze. His hands stayed up. His eyes stayed locked on Maya's terrified face. Razor took a slow step forward. The gravel crunched beneath his boots, a sound that seemed to echo through the chamber like a drumbeat. He kept his hands raised, his palms open and visible. "You don't want her, Derek." His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You want to hurt me and Emily. That's what this is really about, isn't it? It's about control, about showing her she can't leave you." Derek's jaw tightened. His eyes flickered with something dark and ugly. He didn't answer, but the knife pressed a little harder against Maya's jacket. A soft whimper escaped her lips, and Razor's heart twisted in his chest. "Let her go," Razor said. "Let her go, and I'll give you anything. my bike, my wallet, my life. He took another step forward, slow and careful. You want someone to hurt? Hurt me. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Maya's eyes found his again. They were wet and red-rimmed, filled with a fear that no child should ever know. Her tiny fingers scratched weakly at the rope binding her. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. See that? Razor kept his voice soft, almost a whisper. She's scared. She's just a little girl, Derek. She hasn't done anything to you. She doesn't even understand what's happening. Let her go, and we can settle this between us. Man to man. Derek's eyes narrowed. His grip on the knife tightened. For a moment, Razor thought he might strike. But instead, Derek let out a low, cruel laugh. You think I'm stupid, old man? You think I don't know what you're doing? You're trying to get close, trying to get me to slip up. He shook his head slowly. I've been in this game a long time. I know every trick in the book. Razor kept his eyes on Maya. He didn't look at Derek. He didn't let his voice waver. I'm not playing tricks, Derek. I'm just asking you to do the right thing. You know what that feels like? Doing the right thing? He paused. I didn't. Not for a long time. I made choices that hurt people. People I loved. I ran away from my responsibilities because I was scared and selfish, and I've spent years trying to make up for it. Derek's lip curled in disgust. You talk like a fool. Maybe I do. Razor took another step forward. He was closer now, close enough to see the sweat on Derek's brow, the tension in his shoulders. But I'm not the same man I was 20 years ago. I learned that family isn't about blood. It's about showing up when it matters. It's about protecting the people who can't protect themselves. He pointed at Maya. That little girl, Derek. She's the reason I'm standing here. She's the reason I'm willing to give you everything I have. She's innocent. She deserves a chance to grow up without fear. Without the shadow of you and me hanging over her head. Derek's expression flickered. For just a moment, Razor saw something in his eyes. A crack in the armor. A hint of doubt. But then it was gone, replaced by the cold, hard mask he wore like a shield. Pretty words, Derek said. But words don't matter. Actions matter. And you? You're a washed-up biker with a guilty conscience. You don't deserve her. You don't deserve Emily. You don't deserve anything. Maybe I don't. Razor's voice was steady, unwavering, but she does. She deserves a life. A home. People who love her. Can you give her that, Derek? Can you look at her face and tell me you can give her what she needs? Derek's eyes darted to Maya. The little girl stared back at him, her small body trembling. Her lips were blue from cold, her cheeks pale and tear-stained. Shut up, Derek hissed. Shut your mouth, old man. Make me, Razor said quietly. He took another step forward. But you know I'm right. You know it in your gut. That's why you're angry. That's why you're scared. I'm not scared of anything, Derek snarled. Everyone's scared of something, Razor said. You're scared of losing. You're scared of being alone. You're scared of the man you see in the mirror every day. Derek's hand trembled. Just slightly, but Razor saw it. He saw the knife waver, the blade cutting a tiny arc through the stale air. You're losing your nerve, Derek, Razor said softly. That's okay. It happens to all of us. But you can still walk away from this. You can still choose to be better. From somewhere outside, a sound pierced the silence. A voice, amplified by a loudspeaker, echoing through the mine entrance and down the shaft. We have you surrounded. Drop the weapon. It was Sheriff Danvers. Her voice was firm and commanding, bouncing off the stone walls like thunder. Derek's eyes went wide. His head whipped toward the entrance, then back to Razor. His breathing turned ragged. His hand shook harder now, the knife trembling in his grasp. "Don't do anything stupid," Razor said quietly. "It's over, Derek. You know it is." Derek's gaze flickered with doubt. For the first time, he looked unsure. The knife wavered in his hand, the blade catching the lantern light as it trembled. The knife trembled in Derek's hand. Then it dipped. His chin quivered, and before anyone could move, tears spilled down his face like rain on a dirty window. He blinked hard, trying to push them back, but they kept coming. His breath hitched. His shoulders shook. "I just wanted someone to love me," he muttered. His voice was small, cracked, barely a whisper. The words seemed to surprise even him. He stared at the ground, at the dust on his boots, at the little girl trembling in his arms. "That's all. I just wanted someone to stay." Razor stayed still. He kept his hands up, but his eyes softened. He watched the hard man crumble, watched the anger drain away like water through a sieve. He didn't speak, he didn't push. He just waited. Derek's jaw worked. He looked down at Maya. Her tiny face was streaked with tears and dirt. Her lips quivered. But she looked back at him with wide eyes, not angry, not hateful, just scared, just small. Something broke inside him. A sob tore from his chest. "I'm sorry," he choked. "I'm so sorry." His knife clattered to the stone floor. The sound echoed through the mine like a bell. He lowered Maya to the ground with shaking hands, his fingers clumsy and gentle at the same time. He untied the rope around her little wrists, his own fingers fumbling and wet. He worked the knot loose, and when it finally gave way, he pulled the rope away and tossed it aside. Then he placed her on her feet. His hands lingered on her shoulders for a moment, steadying her. Maya wobbled. She looked up at him, then past him toward Razor. "Go," Derek whispered. His voice broke. "Go." Maya took a shaky step, then another. Her little legs carried her forward, wobbly and uncertain. Her arms reached out. Razor didn't think. He lunged. His boots scraped against the stone as he closed the distance. He dropped to his knees in front of her, his strong arms sweeping her up and pulling her close. She buried her face in his shoulder, her small body shaking with sobs. She smelled like pine and dust and fear. He held her tight, one hand cradling her head, the other wrapped around her back. "I've got you, little one," he murmured into her hair. "I've got you. You're safe now." She clung to him like he was the only solid thing in the world. Her tiny fingers gripped the collar of his leather vest. She buried deeper into him, hiding from the darkness, from the man behind her, from everything. Razor rose to his feet. He kept Maya pressed against his chest, shielding her with his broad frame. His back stayed to Derek, but he could hear the man weeping, could hear the soft, broken sounds of a life finally cracking open. He didn't turn. He didn't speak. He just walked. Step by step, he backed out of the mine. Each footfall was careful, measured. He kept his body between Maya and the shadow behind them, even as the darkness began to fade, and the dim lantern light gave way to cold gray daylight. The tunnel widened. The air grew fresher. Somewhere ahead, he heard voices, shouts of relief, the crunch of boots on gravel. But he didn't look up. Not yet. He looked down at the small girl in his arms. Her eyes were closed, her cheek pressed against his chest. Her breathing slowly steadied. Her fingers relaxed, one by one, until she was just holding on, trusting him completely. Maya sniffled. "Gamma," she whispered. Razor's throat tightened. Yeah, sweetheart. Granddaddy's here. The light grew brighter. The mine entrance loomed ahead, a jagged mouth of rock and sky. He stepped through it, into the open air, into the waiting arms of the world. Emily was there. He saw her rushing toward him, her face pale and streaked with tears. The sheriff was there too, hand on her radio. The whole club was there, a wall of leather and steel. But in that moment, there was only Maya, only her small weight in his arms, only her trust in his heart. Razor kept walking, kept backing away from the darkness, shielding her with everything he had. The world exploded into motion around him. 2 deputies sprinted past, boots crunching on gravel. Their flashlights cut through the dark mouth of the mine as they disappeared inside. The radio crackled. Voices shouted. But Razor heard it all like it was happening far away, underwater. His whole world was the small weight in his arms. Then Emily was there. She crashed into them, her arms wrapping around both of them at once. She sobbed into Maya's hair, her whole body shaking. Her hands moved over her daughter like she was checking that every piece was still real, still there, still breathing. "Baby," she choked. "Oh, baby, I'm here. Mommy's here." Maya stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, sleepy and dazed. When she saw her mother's face, something clicked loose inside her. She let out a small cry and reached out. Emily took her from Razor's arms. She pressed Maya to her chest and sank to her knees in the dirt. The two of them rocked together, mother and daughter, their tears mixing in the cold mountain air. Emily whispered things Razor couldn't hear. Things between the two of them, secrets and promises and love. Razor stood over them. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and pretended it was dirt. Inside the mine, the deputies emerged with Derek between them. His hands were cuffed behind his back. His head hung low. He didn't fight. He didn't speak. He just shuffled forward, a broken man being led into the light. As he passed Razor, Derek paused. For just a moment, their eyes met. Derek's were red and wet. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something, but no words came. He just nodded, once, slow and heavy. Razor nodded back. Then the deputies led him away. Sheriff Danvers approached. Her face was stern, but her eyes were soft. She looked at Emily and Maya, then at Razor. She took a long breath and let it out slow. "You walked in there alone," she said, "unarmed, against a man with a knife." Razor shrugged. He wasn't going to hurt her. "You didn't know that?" "Yeah," Razor said quietly. "I did." Danvers studied him for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression. She extended her hand. "Thank you, Jack." He looked at her hand, then at her face. People didn't call him Jack. Not anymore. Not for years. He was Razor. The name was a wall he hid behind. But this woman wasn't trying to break the wall. She was just offering him a hand. He took it. "You gonna charge him?" he asked. "Yes. Kidnapping, assault, attempted murder." She paused. "He'll be in for a long time." Razor nodded. "He's broken. He's not evil. Just broken." Danvers gave him a long look. "You've got a soft heart under all that leather, Malone. Don't let anyone tell you different." She turned and walked toward her cruiser. Emily rose to her feet, still holding Maya. The little girl's head rested on her shoulder, eyes half closed. Emily swayed gently, humming something soft. A song Razor didn't recognize. A lullaby, maybe? The kind a mother sings when she thinks no one is listening. "Come on," Emily whispered. "Let's go home." Danvers offered them a ride in her patrol car. Emily climbed into the back seat, cradling Maya in her lap like she never wanted to let go. Maya's tiny body relaxed into her mother's warmth. Within minutes, her breathing slowed. Her little mouth fell open. She was asleep. Razor sat up front next to the sheriff. He turned around in his seat just to look at them, just to make sure it was real. Maya's small hand rested over her mother's heart. Emily's eyes were closed, her head leaned back, tears still slipping down her cheeks, but she was smiling. Razor reached back. Slowly, gently, he took Maya's tiny hand in his own calloused fingers. She was so small. Her hand was like a little bird in his grip. He held it carefully, like it was made of glass and gold. The patrol car rolled down the winding mountain road. Pine trees rushed past. The sun was beginning to sink toward the peaks, filling the valley with warm amber light. Betty would have cookies waiting. She always did. Razor looked down at Maya's hand in his, a tiny, perfect, sleeping girl, his granddaughter. The words still felt strange in his heart, like a key turning in a lock he forgot he had. But it fit. It fit better than anything had in years. He held her hand and watched the road ahead. The mountain stood tall and silent. The sky opened wide and blue. And for the first time in a long, long time, Jack Malone felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The morning sun poured through the tall windows of the county courthouse. It painted golden stripes across the wooden benches and the worn marble floor. The air smelled of lemon polish and old paper. And somewhere down the hall, a phone rang and rang. Razor stood in the front row of the gallery. He wore a clean white shirt, not his usual leather vest, not his cut. It felt strange, but the right kind of strange. Around him sat his brothers from the club, all of them in pressed shirts and polished boots. They held flowers, big bunches of wildflowers and daisies, like they were going to a wedding instead of an adoption hearing. Big Mike held a bouquet so large it covered half his chest. He looked at it, then at Razor, and shrugged. "She likes yellow," Mike said quietly. "Maya told me." "Maya is too," Razor whispered back. "She knows what she likes." That got a soft laugh from the men around them, but the laugh faded fast when the side door opened. Emily stepped through first. She wore a simple blue dress, clean and neat. Her hair was brushed and pulled back, her face fresh and bright. In her arms sat Maya, dressed in a tiny white dress with little pink shoes. The little girl's eyes were wide, taking in the big room, the tall ceiling, the many faces. Razor felt his throat tighten. Betty sat in the back row, right behind the club members. She had a plate of cookies on the bench beside her, wrapped in a checkered cloth. She caught Razor's eye and gave him a small nod. Her smile was warm and steady. Emily reached the front of the room. She set Maya down on the floor, holding her small hand. Maya looked up at the judge, a serious woman with silver hair and kind eyes. The judge smiled. "Well now, who do we have here?" Maya hid her face against Emily's leg. Then she peeked out, one eye visible, curious. "She's a bit shy," Emily said softly. "That's all right," the judge said. "Courthouses can be intimidating, even for grown-ups." The judge opened a thick folder. She read through the pages slowly, nodding to herself. Razor watched her face, looking for any sign of trouble. But the judge's expression stayed soft. "Emily Malone," the judge said, "you are here today to finalize the adoption of Maya. Can you tell me, in your own words, why you want this?" Emily took a breath. Her voice shook at first, but it steadied as she spoke. "I found her in the woods 2 years ago. She was alone. She was so small, and she was crying, and no one was coming for her." Emily paused. "I promised her that night that she would never be alone again. I've kept that promise every day since, and I will keep it for the rest of my life." The judge nodded slowly. And you, Mr. Malone? You stand before me as the grandfather?" Razor's voice came out rough. "Yes, ma'am." "How do you feel about this child?" Razor looked at Maya. She was peeking out now, 2 eyes visible, watching him with that curious, trusting look she had. His heart ached in a way he couldn't name. "I wasn't there for my own daughter," he said. "I was too lost in my own mess to see what mattered. But this little one, she changed everything. She looked at me like I was somebody, like I was worth something, and I'd do anything for her. Anything. For both of them." The judge was quiet for a long moment. Then she closed the folder. "I have reviewed this case carefully," she said. "I have read reports from social workers. I have seen the home inspections. I have spoken with your sheriff, who had only good things to say." She looked at Emily. "I have seen the life you have built for this child, the love you have given her, and I have seen the family around you." She picked up a gavel. "It is my honor to declare that Maya is now and forever the legal daughter of Emily Malone." The gavel came down, a clean, crisp sound. "And as Maya's legal grandfather, Jack Malone, you hold a place in this family that no one can ever take away." The courtroom erupted. The bikers let out a roar. Flowers went up in the air. Big Mike was laughing and crying at the same time, the huge bouquet crushed against his chest. Betty stood and clapped, tears rolling down her cheeks. Emily scooped Maya into her arms and held her tight. Maya giggled, her little hands patting her mother's face. Emily spun her around once, then wrapped her free arm around her father, pulling him into the circle. Razor bent his head and pressed his forehead against Maya's. She reached out and grabbed his nose. "Gampa," she said. Razor laughed. It was a wet, broken sound, but it was real. "Yeah, baby," he whispered. "Gampa's here." 1 month later, the Colorado sun poured down like honey. It was the kind of warm Saturday that made you want to sit outside and do nothing at all. But Razor wasn't sitting. He was kneeling on the cracked asphalt of the clubhouse parking lot, holding a tiny pink motorcycle steady with both hands. The bike was small enough to fit in the back of a truck. It had training wheels on both sides and a little bell on the handlebar. Razor had spent 3 weeks finding it, then another week fixing it up. Maya stood beside him, bouncing on her toes. She wore her star helmet. It was bright yellow with silver stars all over it, and it was slightly too big, so it wobbled when she moved her head. She had insisted on wearing it since breakfast. She even wore it while eating her cereal. "Ready, little one?" Razor asked. Maya nodded so hard the helmet slid down over her eyes. She pushed it back up with both hands. "Gampa, go," she said. Emily sat on a bench nearby, a cup of coffee in her hands that she wasn't drinking. Her eyes were soft and wet. Her whole body leaned forward, watching her father and her daughter together. The other club members had gathered around. Big Mike held another bouquet, though this one was smaller. 2 of the younger bikers, Danny and Cruz, sat on their own motorcycles, helmets off, grinning like kids. Betty had brought a lawn chair and a plate of cookies, which she guarded with her life. "Okay," Razor said. "Here's how this works. You hold on to the handlebars, you put your feet on these little pegs, and I push. Got it?" Maya looked at him with complete seriousness. "Got it." Razor lifted her onto the seat. Her feet barely reached the pegs, but she grabbed the handlebars with both hands. Her knuckles were white. Her little chin stuck out with determination. "I'm going to push you nice and slow," Razor said. "You just steer, okay? Turn the wheel where you want to go." Maya nodded again. The helmet slipped again. "Okay," Razor said. "Here we go." He gave the bike a gentle push. It rolled forward slowly, the training wheels wobbling. Maya let out a little squeal. Then she turned the handlebars too far to the left, and the bike veered sharply. Razor caught it just before she tipped over. "Whoa, Tiger," he said, laughing. "Not so hard. Easy turns, like this." He showed her with his hands, turning the handlebars slowly from side to side. She watched him with those big, curious eyes. Then she nodded. "Easy," she repeated. He pushed her again. This time she steered straighter. She made a wide, wobbly circle around the parking lot. Her giggle rose into the air like music. "You're doing it!" Razor shouted. "You're riding!" Maya turned her head to look at him, grinning. The helmet slipped again, covering one eye. She didn't care. She kept riding. Emily set her coffee down. She stood up, her hands pressed to her mouth. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Not sad tears. The good kind. The kind that came from a heart full to bursting. Razor ran alongside the little bike, one hand ready to catch if she fell. His boots pounded on the asphalt. His shirt was soaked with sweat. He didn't care. He was laughing. Maya made another circle, then another. She was getting the hang of it now. Her turns were smoother. Her balance was better. She bounced slightly on the seat, and the bell on the handlebar went ding, ding, ding with every bump. "Gampa, look!" she shouted. "I'm looking, baby, I see you!" Razor looked back over his shoulder at Emily. His face was flushed. His eyes were bright. He mouthed the words slowly, making sure she could read them. "I'm here now." Emily nodded. Her tears fell freely. She mouthed back, "I know." Maya circled around one more time, and then rolled to a stop right in front of her mother. She took off her helmet with both hands, her hair a wild tangle of curls. "Mama," she said, breathless. I rode so fast." "I saw, sweetheart," Emily said, kneeling down. "You rode like the wind." Maya turned to Razor. "Gampa, again?" Razor crouched down in front of her. He reached out and gently pushed a curl away from her face. "Again," he said, "as many times as you want." Emily stepped forward and wrapped her arms around both of them. She pulled them close. The three of them stood there, tangled together in the middle of the parking lot, the sun warm on their backs. The club burst into cheers. Big Mike threw his bouquet into the air. Danny and Cruz revved their engines. Betty clapped and laughed, then immediately scolded everyone for being too loud near her cookies. Maya giggled against her mother's chest. She reached out and grabbed Razor's hand. "Gampa, ride with me," she said. Razor looked at Emily. She nodded, her smile wide and shining. "All right, little one," he said. "Let's ride." He lifted her back onto the bike. He climbed onto his own motorcycle, a big black machine that rumbled like thunder. Then he put Maya on his lap, her tiny hands on the handlebars, his big hands covering hers. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready," she shouted. They rolled forward together. Maya's star helmet wobbled. Her laugh rang out across the parking lot. Emily watched them go, her heart full. Then she ran to catch up, and Betty called after her, "Save some cookies for the riders." The three of them rolled in slow, happy circles. The bikers cheered. The mountains stood tall behind them. The trees stretched deep and dark. But here in this moment, they were not lost. They were found, and ahead of them lay nothing but open road and bright future. I hope you like this story. Please share what's your favorite part of the story and where in the world you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.